Welcome back, everybody. This is Kareem Kanji. This is week 2 of strategy. Oh, it's week 2 of social media marketing, and we are talking strategy today. So let's move on with the program. So here's how I want to frame this week's lesson, and there is a lot of content, not particularly in this video per se, but within all of the additional content on Blackboard for this week. So please make sure that you go through all of it. But we're going to talk about strategy. We're going to consider strategy at every campaign touch point. Want everyone to go through Forrester Research's social strategy outline, and we're going to focus in on that. And I want you guys to spend a lot of time going through that on your own rather than me read the whole strategy. We're going to use the core and pass to help us define our goals because the end game is at the end of this course. We will all have a strategy to deliver for a client that we will choose, and we'll talk about that a little later on. So we're going to go through a social platform review, what's going on, talk about development. We're going to talk about what Forrester calls their personas for audience development, and we'll go through the cores and paths information architecture. So here is what it looks like. 96% of all Canadians online visit social media sites every month. So if we take a look, this is from Comscore, if we take a look at a cross-section of the world, we have Canada at 96, followed by United States 95, Mexico almost at 100%, Latin America 98, United Kingdom 93, Germany 78, and so on. We'll see Middle East and Africa at 81%. The most glaring number there is China at 36. To me, it's glaring because we see the Far East as a very highly developed and very early on in terms of mobile and taking advantage of all of these various new technologies and getting online as part of that. But very curious, 36% in China. So content themes. We need to talk about engaging tactics for a specific audience. We're going to talk about collaborating with influencers, shareable and snackable content, and rich media. These are basically content themes. It doesn't matter what kind of company or business or organization you're with. Really, content templates are very similar. So when we're talking about audience, whoever the audience is, we need to make sure that we're engaging with them. This isn't one-to-many, a commercial or an ad in a magazine. People have a choice now when they go online. When they are on these social sites or anywhere online, to click out, click in, click through, click away. We need to engage with them. We need to collaborate with influencers because influencers are the ones that can help us talk to specific communities and give us the green light in their community's eyes. We need to make sure that content is shareable. Is it something we want? We want our audience to take a look at that content, to engage with it, and say, you know what, this is valuable enough, it's entertaining enough that I want to share this with my friends and family, with my community. And it needs to be quick content these days because we're all busy not just with our professional and personal lives, but with being able to consume as much content of our liking that we can. Here's some examples. You got big brands such as Wattpad and BlackBerry. These are Canadian brands, and this is very interesting. The head of content for Wattpad said in the Philippines, more people downloaded the Wattpad app than Facebook. Wattpad has a huge ability to engage with their audience. They have a platform that allows people from you and I to personalities such as Margaret Atwood to create content and to engage with readers uh, within that content, and to allow these readers and the community to add their voices to the content that writers and content creators produce at places like Wattpad. Lululemon has the ability to engage their audience. They have a very tight knit, very focused, uh, a very thriving community, and you can see it in their content as well. And even small nonprofits, they might not have a lot of followers, but you know what? They understand about engagement. And here's an organization called Mommy Morsels that understands the process of engaging with their audience, and you can see it in their content right there. You know, the last tweet there is they're talking with someone, and they're not just focused in on, nope, we're only going to give out recipes for brain health, and that's all that we have the time and capacity to do. They make the time and effort to engage. It doesn't matter if you're a diner or social restaurants do the same thing. You can see examples here. Pizzeria Liberto, Rosedale Diner. Personalities, even people such as Ryan Seacrest, with a big, huge, popular name, understands the ability to, you know what, I'm just human. People understand the desire to have caffeine and coffee. Customer service, here's Dell Cares, that are not just talking about support for their product and they care about people using their product, but they also show, as you can see here, that they care about what's going on in their communities as well. And you can see them talking about the Colorado flood and what people can do. Hyper local news, places like the blog TO and Torontoist, very engaged with their local communities as well. But there's also brands or products that don't have to be on social. It's a bit of a stretch to be on social. So here's a couple of memes. One is for a kitchen roll. I wonder if my favorite brand of kitchen roll is a Twitter stream I can follow. People aren't looking for that. And it can work for Canadian as well. And I think a lot of you have heard of Epic Mealtime. But if you haven't, search out for them. These guys cook with junk food, with bacon, with beer. And they've amassed a huge rabid following online all across the world, from their kitchens and bars in Montreal, I believe, is where these guys are from. So, it might not engage with you, but they've found who their audience is, they understand their audience, and they provide engaging content to the audience. So let's talk about building a social brand. So here's a photo. What's the difference between these two? Or can you identify any of them? I can identify the ones on the left. The ones on the right, I couldn't. So it's more than just about a cookie. It's about what does this brand speak? So when you're getting Girl Guide cookies, you understand, and I love those chocolate cookies, by the way, but you understand what it is that you are supporting or buying into when you purchase those boxes of cookies for $5 from Girl Guides, and not the Dare chocolate fudge cookie for $2.99 or $3.99 at your local grocery store. You're buying into a story. You're buying into a feeling of children and young girls doing amazing things in the community and developing leadership and outreach skills. And that's a social brand, a brand that's more than just their product. A social brand is a conversation starter. So when you talk about Girl Guide cookies, you talk about everything besides just the cookie. right? It's relevant to the target, the culture, and the product. That's what makes a social brand. So when you look at these things, Harry Potter, there's communities around Harry Potter. Nike, Michael Jordan, Oprah Magazine, the Toronto Blue Jays, and even in the bottom right-hand corner, George Brown College. But these brands are naturally social. People love their local sports teams. I'm recording this just after the Montreal Canadiens won Game 7 against the Boston Bruins, and there's people all across this country that hate the Habs, but that love that a Canadian team has won. Or even if they don't, you can see in your Twitter feeds, or if you just go online and see the love that people have for a corporate-owned team. So it's more than just about the logo. It is the feeling that emanates from that logo that people latch onto, and it says, yeah, it might be a corporate team, but it's a community team. This team has stories, generations and generations down the line, that people can say that their great grandparents or their grandparents or their fathers have stories about going to hockey games or other sports games. So how does a social brand behave? Well, first of all, every product or service has a conversation inherent to it. It's all about the storytelling, right? So what story can you tell, not just about the brand, but about what that brand stands for? For others, it's natural. For other ones, it takes a little bit of time, right? The point is you need to be authentic, right? So you got to be true to yourself, got to be true to your community. You have to be relevant. So you just can't talk about anything, but it has to be relevant to your audience. It has to resonate with them as well. So let's take a look at this. Microsoft Canada tweets out, we've reached 14,000 followers. Thanks to everyone for joining the conversation. Who gives a rat's you know what? Right? Is that relevant to you? Not unless you're a Microsoft employee or that you're the community manager for that account. You don't really care. Look at United. Have questions about a new ad campaign? Actually, you know what? I don't think anyone has questions about your ad campaign. I think people have questions about, is my flight going to be on time? Or am I going to be bumped because you oversold the flight? IKEA Canada. All that they've tweeted here in this snapshot, and they might have changed. This was taken in the summer. All that they've tweeted here is, hey, we've got sales. We've got products. Don't you want to buy from us? Right? They're not resonating. It's boring. What does compelling content look like? Well, see, for a company like Make-A-Wish, an organization like Make-A-Wish, that's something that pulls at the heartstrings, right? So that's easier for a brand like Make-A-Wish to do. But what about examples like this? In the past, not as much recently, we've seen accounts be hacked. We've seen hacking stunts, or MTV is going back and forth with McDonald's and Burger King. What's going on here? Is McDonald's Burger King, or is Burger King McDonald's? Is BET MTV, or is it the other way around? What's going on? So, are these stunts or not? But it's relevant because of the audience they're talking to. It resonates with them probably. So these are very interesting ideas. So what is social behavior, and what are demographics? Well, demographics are things obviously like, what's your age? Are you male or female? What's your income level? Where do you live? These things are generally static. They don't change too much. But then there's this idea of behavioral data, right? So things that people do, the interaction that they have, what they consume, the type of content that create, the actual comments that they'll leave on message boards. This is behavioral data. So there's some differences there, right? So these creators, critics, collectors, joiners, spectators, and inactives. This is from Forrester, and we'll talk about that as well. So creators are those people who publish things, right? They publish web pages, they write blogs, They upload videos. Tools are, Tumblr and YouTube. That's where they sort of live. They live on places like WordPress. They might be tweeting like myself dozens and dozens of times a day. Then there's critics, right? These people you just can't get rid of. They just annoy you. They comment everywhere, but they have more bad things to say than good things. These are the people that will come on YouTube and denounce every single, video that's on there, or they'll go on Yelp and badmouth every restaurant or hotel that they've been to. You've got collectors. These are people that are sort of collecting things as they go along because, they want to know where their friends have stayed. They want to know what shows people are seeing, and they're tagging them, they're bookmarking them. They're using Pinterest and creating boards so that when the time comes, they can go back to this content and act on it in the real world. Joiners, that's my parents on Facebook. Spectators, these are people that are on Twitter, but they're just reading stuff. They're not contributing at all. Or they're listening to podcasts, or they're looking at photos on Instagram. Inactives, these are people that are online but aren't doing anything. So these are the guys that just have the Google Plus account. This is an interesting slide here. Feel free to pause here and go through that. But I think this is very important to understand where these creators, critics, and so on live. Who are they? Because I think we can understand more about our audience if we understand what they're doing and who they are. Then we can start creating content and messaging, for them and with them in mind. So if you want to go back here and pause it here and take a look and see what sort of insights you can gain for your brand and for you. The digital behavior defies age, income, and location. I think you can see that in this slide before. Because social is less about who these people are and more about what these people are actually doing. What are their activities? So I think that's very, very important. And here's another way of explaining what we've talked about as well. Malcolm Gladwell has a talk, I think it's on TED, about, I think it's about spaghetti sauce. And he talks about how this scientist, after months, if not years of studying, figured out that there's not a such thing as the perfect soda or the perfect Pepsi or the perfect Coke or the perfect spaghetti sauce. But there are perfect spaghetti sauces. Or there's really different types of products for people within that same brand. So some people might like chunky spaghetti sauce. Other people might like their spaghetti sauce runny. So it's very important to understand that you might have different audiences, and now we've got the ability to create content for these different audiences as well. As marketers, our challenge is to identify and select the right social media touchpoints in order to provide integrated support for brand messaging based on these behaviors. Again, we've got all these tools. How are we going to use them plus our various messages to start talking to these various people? Obviously, that's a lot different than creating one commercial or one brand message. That's the traditional way of things. Social media is about, we've got different types of people that are interested in us. We've got the chunky spaghetti sauce lovers and the thin spaghetti sauce lovers. We want to sell them both. How do we cultivate these two different types of audiences? So obviously the process is going to be different. Tactics and channels are going to be different. But at the end, social has to work with everything else. It can't be a silo. So here's a Forrester strategy. Number one, we need to discover what's our vision, what is the landscape that we're operating in, and what's the business case. Vision, who is our brand online? Who is already there? And are we just going to be there for the sake of it, or are we going to develop an ROI? This is pretty cool. This is an interesting video. I'm sure all of you have seen this. If you haven't, let's quickly take a look at this Budweiser commercial. Whoops. From the Super Bowl. I don't know, what does that say to you guys? It's a very interesting video, and I'd love for you to take a moment and start a conversation on Facebook. So maybe one of you wants to post this video and start a conversation about this video. I enjoy it. I get choked up every time I see this video. Um, does it speak? Tell me why it speaks to the brand and how it speaks about the brand and the audience as well. And then we get to this commercial by WestJet that we all have seen because all of Canada's seen it. I think this works for WestJet because WestJet's all about um, their customers and providing that radical, awesome customer service. No one talks about the flight, everyone talks about the experience. And I think that's an awesome example of what WestJet did. I think it speaks amazingly to their brand. If you disagree, that's awesome. Love to hear your thoughts on Facebook. Why don't we do that as well? So, how does a social brand behave? Number one, a social brand invests in and believes in their conversation. So, WestJet believes that they're about the customer, delivering uh, top-notch customer service to the people that fly with them. They also realize that conversations could be controversial. There could be people there that disagree with what a brand stands for. We saw not too long ago, um, a bad example of Chick-fil-A saying, we disagree with the ways certain things are going on in down in the states, whether they were a social brand or not. But they stood up for something that they believed in, and that was very, very controversial. A social brand engages the consumer on every relevant is the important word, relevant platform. Makes no sense for brands, uh, to be on a platform just because we see with Snapchat, any brand new fancy social media thing that comes out doesn't mean that every single brand needs to be on it. You need to understand who your consumer is and where they are. A social brand does proper planning. Might take a lot of time, but they need to execute quickly. Why? You need to respond to trends. You need to respond to memes. You need to respond to news. You might have to. You might not all the time, but you might have to. But at the same time, a social brand evolves over time because they follow the trends and they follow the news and they follow the way people are behaving, way their consumers are behaving. However, all that being said, randomness can win. Shit girls say cinnamon challenges are really weird and wacky things that go on. Um, who knows, right? Number two, you got to plan. So let's talk about planning. Question number one to ask: sit down with your organization, or if the organization is you, sit down in front of a mirror and ask yourself, why are you online in the first place? Is it any of these? Are you looking to convert engagement to sales? Are you looking to promote a brand identity? Are you looking to connect? If it's just yourself, do you just want to connect with like-minded people? Maybe you're just finishing school and you're looking for a job, and that's why you're on LinkedIn. Are you a company that's looking to expand your services? Or are you maybe a nonprofit and you're looking to increase the number of donors? You need to ask yourself these things. Here's a brand, TimeRaiser. They're based out here in Toronto. So here's their strategy. What do they want to do? They want to sell tickets, and they want to promote artists, and they want to provide support for other nonprofit organizations. Who is their audience? They understand that. They know that. They're young professionals, they're emerging artists, they're donors who are interested in giving just more than just money. They want to give their time and expertise. They're funders. There's people saying, you know what, I'll fund you, but I'm looking for more than just, an ROI. And also, obviously, media. Media should be part of your audience so that your message can be spread to places that you can't reach yourselves. So the plan that TimeRaiser had, their key messaging, they published it on their Twitter page around civic engagement stories and work that organizations are involved with. They had posts that supported artists and young professionals with an interest in volunteering. And they also provided social media best tips and practices as well for these NGOs or nonprofits or charities. They understood that number one, it was essential for them to do this to build awareness. They didn't have a huge marketing budget, so they had to really, understand what they could afford to do. And they knew they had to engage with the right types of people so that they could get a strong word of mouth happening. But they also knew they had to have engaging content as well so that the content would be shared. So understand this when you're talking about and you're looking at different types of content. Who are you and what is your voice? Who's the individual or the team or committee or agency that's going to not just be tweeting, but putting up Facebook posts and really executing your social media strategy. Think about photos and videos. Is it relevant to your audience? And is it going to work on the platforms that you've chosen? Understand about shortening your links and utilizing Bitly. We talked about that last week, so that you can track the content that you're sharing. And are there certain brands that maybe you don't want to mention? A client of mine is in the medical profession or medical industry, and have chosen not to mention other medical organizations. That's an internal decision that they made and communicated it to me and my team. So, you tested a hypothesis. What happens if the hypothesis doesn't pan out? Have a plan B, have a plan C. Consider failures, but also consider failures to be researched so that you understand what works and what doesn't work. Know that you're learning something valuable. It's okay to make a mistake, but also ask yourself, is a failure due to a bad strategy, a bad tactic execution, or a lack of authenticity around your brand? Let's pause here, copy this, take a screenshot of this, print this out for yourself. This is the cores and paths for social. We're going to quickly go through this as well. And you're going to want to use this as you start to develop and understand your brand and your brand strategy or your social media strategy. So number one, you have your user goals and your business goals, right? What is your user interested in, and what you as a business are you interested in as well? So what's your consumer's goals, and what is your business's goals? Some of the times they'll be different. Your business goals might be to increase your profits, but your user's goals might be to save money, and that's okay. You're going to have inward paths. So where do these users come from? How do they find you? Are there certain devices that they're using to come to you? Are their mobile community coming to you? You can get a lot of this information on Google Analytics. And in another class, we're going to talk about Google Analytics as well. But you need to understand where people are coming from so that you know what is working and what is not working. And then there are outward paths. So after they come to you, after they find you on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, where are they going? Where are you directing people to? Where, what Bitly links are you sharing with your community and with individuals? And are they taking the action that you're looking for them to take? But it's okay. You know what? Mistakes are going to happen. An article that Jay Baer wrote talked about that, twit happens. So check out convinceandconvert.com and check out this particular article. You can pause it here and read this article to understand that, stuff happens. And sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's not okay. So pause it here, take a look at this article, and come right back. Okay. Part 3 is act. Not every tool is going to be right. Google on Twitter. There's an online and an offline community. And how can you merge the two if you think that's valuable? For some it will be, for others it won't. And we'll talk about offline-online strategy closer to the end of the class as well. But not everything is going to be online. You might want to integrate both. And finally, we're talking about optimization. Idea Storm. This is not Facebook, this is not Twitter, this is not YouTube, this is Dell's own community called ideastorm.com, where people, whether they are employees, whether they are just people interested in technology and solutions and making things work better, can go onto this website and talk about ideas about Dell products and Dell services and what they're looking for. And you can vote and you can actually see which ideas have actually resulted in products or iterations to products and services. There are, by the way, non-financial measures of social marketing impact, right? So not just ROI in dollars. You got increase in web visitors, earned impressions, click-throughs, retweets. You got word of mouth. You got an increase or decrease in friends, followers, or views. There's positive press. There's the distribution of coupons, visitors to store, emails delivered, employment applications, social mentions, blog comments, and so many others. These are all things that you can decide whether or not they're important and that you can measure them and understand what impact that has on moving the bottom line needle. And only you really can understand whether or not a retweet means anything. But I think you go from a retweet to a click-through to an increase in web visitors to an email being delivered to someone that gets them to visit a store, that gets them to buy a product. Now you can start seeing the link between going from social to a website to the store, whether that's an online or offline store, to a purchase of a product or a service or a donation or a download of a white paper that drives your bottom line. But always remember, why are you online in the first place? It's one of these four things. There might be a few others, but you're either looking to convert engagement to sales, you're looking to build awareness of your brand, could be your company, could be a nonprofit, could be yourself. You're looking to promote an identity, are you looking to promote company X, are you looking to promote employee Y? Or really you're looking to connect with like-minded people. Usually it's going to fall into one of these four. And again, pause it here. Here's an example of a social media strategy that could help you to understand how to develop your own by the end of the class. And this is done by the Opera Ontario Ottawa, which is a small nonprofit company, which obviously produces live full-stage opera productions at the National Arts Centre in Canada's capital, Ottawa. So here's an example of a social media strategy. You can pause it here and screen capture this and then continue on with this video. Alright, let's talk about homework. So, go to our Blackboard online discussion forum there and tell me, who are you? Are you a joiner or are you a creator? Remember this, let's go back here so you guys know what I'm talking about because I went through this very quickly. Let's go back to here. Nope. Here. Are you a creator, a critic, a collector, a joiner, spectator? Are you inactive? So I want you guys to identify yourself. And let's just go to there. Who are you? Number 2, define who your intended audience is. So I want you to start thinking about, so first of all, tell me who you are and why you think you are that person. And number 2, I want you to define who your intended audience is. So I want you to now start thinking about your social media strategy that you're going to have completed by the end of this class. I want you to pick a brand. Now, this brand is going to be one of 3 things. Number 1, it's going to be you. Number 2, it's going to be the company you work for. Or number 3, it's going to be not a company you work for, but it's going to be a brand that you're going to start building out. And I want to see real stuff happening. I don't want to say, well, I don't work for Red Bull, but I'd really love to work for Red Bull, so maybe this can be something that I can present to Red Bull, so I want to do it on Red Bull. No, this has got to be something that we could actually see a beginning, a middle, and not an end, but we can start seeing some results of some sort, whether they're success or not. So, define who your intended audience is, or who you ideally are going to build content for. So obviously you got to identify who the brand is, number one. Number two, who your audience is. So begin to think about your social media strategy by defining your audience. I want you to understand, and some of you have mentioned this in some of the comments I've seen, about how much time can you dedicate to publishing content. And maybe if you're part of a team, it's not going to be all just about you, but if it is, there's got to be some time you got to put into this thing. And finally, the ways you will engage in conversations with your core group online, right? So I've put an example in Blackboard of someone who has answered this question. So go to that and look at that for guidance. Again, if you have any questions, best place to grab my attention is to email me at let's start again. The best way to get my attention and to get an answer from me is to email me at inspirationbykareem@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. There's a lot of other material for this week. Go through it, and I look forward to seeing your discussions on Facebook and in the online discussion here on Blackboard. Thank you for joining me, guys, and we'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.